All right, so I'm going to do a podcast. I had someone ask me the other day if I do podcasts, and I told them I do on Patreon. And the ones on Patreon really go into some detail. Some of the folks that, um, have been our patrons understand and know what I'm talking about when I say that. Basically, the topics are going to be a whole lot different than what I'm going to put on YouTube. It's just I say a lot more and talk about a lot more controversial things, I guess. On YouTube, I definitely want to keep it family friendly, obviously, and so that's what I intend to do with this particular podcast, which obviously is just going to go on YouTube. Um, but one of the big questions that people have asked us and are curious about is if we're going to grow our family. Now, I don't know why people are so interested in if we're going to actually grow our family, meaning adding more people to HershNoeie. um, to me, I think we have a big family. This day and age, 3 kids seems large. I know that when my mom was growing up, she had, gosh, I think like 8 brothers and sisters or something like that. It was some insane number. But of course, my mom was born in 1932. So back in those days, families were obviously a lot bigger, and it just made sense. Nowadays, it's just kind of impractical. But there are people who do have, large numbers of kids, and they do very, very well. One of the things that I always question for us is quality of life. I think to me it's important that Noelle and I still keep a good quality of life personally, but also to make sure that our children have a good quality of life. And we want to make sure that we're not taking on too much that we can't handle. And I think that that's kind of smart to do. We want to make sure that the girls are able to do the things that they want to do. So not only are they able to go and do ballet, for example, or dance or whatever it may be, but also when it comes time for like holidays, birthdays, things like that, that they're able to actually get several gifts, and these are decent, nice gifts. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we keep them very well grounded and understand that the most important thing is not what you get, it's the people that you're around, and to spend quality time with family. And one of the struggles I had early on was really just taking time for the kids, because I worked a lot when Zoe was really young, a lot. And so I didn't really get to see her grow as much as I did with Zara, and not as much as I did with Zeta when it comes to Zara. As time went on, I got to spend more time with the kids as they're growing up and just seeing some of their firsts. And so with Zoe, I didn't really get to see that. And at the time, I didn't think much about it. Wasn't really something that I focused on. I was focusing on money and career and all that. But at the same time, I was missing a lot of the firsts. And so when I saw them with Zara, it made me really stop and think about that. On one end, providing is obviously important. But on the other end, it's like these are moments you're never going to get back. And so I wanted to make sure that, it's important to me, obviously, to spend time with everyone. Um, but sometimes that can be kind of difficult. And having more kids fits into that equation that I have to think about. Am I going to be able to be the best papa that I can when there's 4 kids as opposed to 3? So it becomes a bit of a stretch, right? Um, so I don't think that we're going to have any more kids, obviously. I've said this before. One, because of Noelle's health. When Zoe was about to be born, Noelle um, wanted to birth her naturally. But they were saying her birthing canal is too small, and then they were talking about how she was in labor for like 19 hours. It was really bad. And so, at that point in time, she had a whole lot of things to worry about, obviously. And this was her first time, my first time, didn't know at all what to expect. They give you this big old document to sign and all this stuff. So it was overwhelming, And then Zoe, because of the long delay, she had to spend some time in the hospital and had some tubes and stuff like that. And her breathing was not all there. And, I was worried. I had legitimate fear. I don't really fear much of anything. Like when it comes to people, I'm not afraid of really anybody. I'm not afraid of anything, you know? But that had me pretty scared. And so I was just worried about, Zoe and her health. And I actually talked to her, she was only at that point just literally less than a couple of hours old. But I remember touching her little hand and telling her, that, thank you for being born. I told all of my kids, I tell them this still, thank you for being born. But I told her, I said, thank you for being born. I really and truly want you to know that I'm going to try to be the best papa that I can. Now, prior to all three of them being born, I wrote letters to them telling them, what this all means to me, like what it means to myself, what it means to their mom, and just basically a personal letter I wanted them to have. And I think Noelle did the same thing. Zoe is now old enough to read, so I handed her that letter and she cried because it touched her so much. But, it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot. And when she was not breathing so well, I didn't know what to do. And I talked to her and I said, I really want you to think about this. I want you to focus on your breathing and just be ready for your mom. We're waiting for you. We're excited. And, some other things I said and, just wanted to be there with her. But I also wanted to be with Noelle. I was torn because I didn't know what to do. Noelle just went through the biggest battle. And not only did she not get to see the baby, but I was also gone too because I was there with Zoe. So, to make a long story short, after I left Zoe and went back with Noelle, she got back into her room. They wheeled her to a room, and so she was asking if the baby would be there, and they said, we have to see. Her levels have to be at this particular point. And we were thinking, forget what they said now, but we were thinking that's a pretty high level that she has to get to. But literally within about almost an hour from the time that I spoke to Zozo, you can hear her crying down the hallway, and Noelle jumped up and said, "That's my baby." And even though she couldn't see her, just the voice, she knew that was Zoe. And it was just shocking that I got to see Noelle transform to be a mom. Yeah, she was a mom carrying her and all of that, but just her whole, everything about her changed to the point of where it just was this, it's hard to explain. It's just hard to explain. Like, she no longer really cared about herself as much as she did for someone else. You know what I mean? Like, she cares for me, obviously, of course, but having a child means so much that it was a different thing. And I changed too. My mom even pointed it out, like, wow, like, you really changed. A lot of people that know me from back in the day, it just didn't fit that this was who I was, but you just do. And so, with Zara, it was a lot easier. And then with Zeta, Noelle had almost, didn't make it. And so, the whole story behind that. So given all those things, the history, I don't think that we would have kids just based on the whole health side of things. She had to have C-sections with all of the kids, because we already knew the whole birth canal issue. So, it was that was kind of the circumstance, right? Quality of life, again, I talk about how, I want to make sure that the kids have a good quality of life spending time with me and with Noelle, but also in terms of college, we want to make sure that the kids go to college. It's kind of one of the things that we have as a prereq for them. Don't care what you graduate in. We just want you to go to college. And so, that's something that we're going to keep in mind in terms of paying for. So, fourth kid would just add to that strain. Um, when it comes to legacy, we have some things that we want to leave for the kids, because we're not going to be around forever. So, with three kids, I mean, we have what they need for them to be good. Um, and so I think that just by having more would just really not, it wouldn't be a good thing overall. The girls get along very well. They work well together. Um, they annoy each other. Zoe was, as the big sister, has a very uncomfortable position because she has to look after both of them. She looks after Zara when they walk to the bus stop, and then with Zeta, or Sweets, as we call her, she has to pretty much, kind of play with her and all that type of stuff. And, it's just a different dynamic. Of course, Zara's the kid in between, and that whole dynamic there. So it just, the way that they all three work together, play together, live together is quite interesting, and they've all changed. Zoe and Zara have definitely changed since Zeta came into the picture. Um, so yeah, I mean, to us, I think that it's a multitude of things as to why we wouldn't have another child. I mean, I think health wise is probably the biggest bulk of that. It's just going to take precedence over everything, and then of course, we want to make sure that they have a good quality of life. And at three, we're good. Any more than that, things start to not be where we want them to be. We could definitely do it. It's not a problem, but we want to make sure that they have more than enough to be successful. So that's to answer the question. No, I mean, a lot of people, I think, want to know if we're going to have another kid because of the boy factor. They think that, aren't you going to try for the boy and that type of thing. And my thing is when we had kids, that was not really our thought. It was, for me, healthy kid. That has always been the point. If a boy came along, great, but it's not something that you just keep going after. You know what I mean? You have 50 kids, and then one turns out to be a boy, the other 49 girls. But no, having girls is great. It's something I'm used to. I grew up with nothing but sisters, so I was the only boy. It's something that I'm very familiar with. Being the only boy has its benefits and its perks too, obviously. But for us, it is about quality of life, healthy kids, healthy lifestyle. So we would not be having any more kids unless something happened, and it happens, then so be it. But we're not planning on any more kids. So hopefully that answers your questions. If you guys would like for me to do more podcasts, then let me know. Podcasts are easy for me to do. I don't have to sit and worry about. I can just sit in my PJs. I guess I can sit in my PJs regardless. But anyway, doing them like this is great because obviously, it doesn't take a lot for me to actually put these together. I don't have to worry about the camera focusing in and out. If you guys like to see me do more of these actual podcasts, put it down in the description box below. If you have any questions, make sure you answer it or ask them. I'll answer them. If they're good questions, of course, and respectful ones. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.